All right. A very good evening to all of you. Welcome to the Amity Online webinar knowledge series. This is our 54th webinar of the post-COVID-19 sort of time period. We started off in early March, and I think I have a lot of attendees already coming in. I welcome you all again to the Amity Online webinar knowledge series. We have a very interesting topic to cover today. It's predominantly around the top tech skills and top IT skills that'll be relevant post the COVID-19 world, or I would say they'll be in demand post the COVID-19 world. I think a lot of things have changed already in the post COVID-19, or rather in the COVID-19 situation already, and we see a lot of jobs becoming redundant, a lot of jobs becoming in demand, and I think IT, information technology services, given that forms the very backbone of our service economy, has its own sort of pros and cons as far as its demand and supply and the jobs that are going to remain relevant is concerned. So before I introduce the speaker for today and talk about his credentials and hand over the beacon to him to do the talking, I would just want to have a confirmation from my attendees, if they can just hear us and see us loud and clear. So to all the attendees, my name is Dhruv. Yep, I forgot to introduce myself, and I'm the moderator for this webinar. I am from the Amity Online team. So just a quick show of hands before we go and set the ball rolling for today's topic. You can all see a hand wave button on your screen. Yes. Yeah. If you could just click that particular button so that we can see that we are audible and all of you can see us. All right. So yeah, I can just see very few hands. I think participants are still coming in, so we'll wait for a couple of minutes. Okay. So I see about 20 hands raised. I think a few more. Then some people have just joined in. So participants who have just joined in, if you can hear us and see us, you can wave at us. There is a hand wave button on the Zoom on the Zoom window, and if you raise your hands, that gives us a good go to go for the session. All right, that's great. Hi, good evening to all. Welcome, Leo, Suhani, Aditi, Birendra, Nishank, Ravindra, Srinidhi Sharma, Tulsi, Rahul, Srinivasan. I think we are good to go. The official start timing was 6 o'clock. Before I just go and introduce the speaker for today, I just run a quick poll with all of you. It's a very simple poll, just trying to understand the audience profile through this poll. So we're just trying to understand what background are you from? Are you from an IT background or a non-IT background? So on your screens, you will see a poll, which is a very simple question, which is, are you from an IT services background? It could be software, networking, tech support, web development, maintenance, data science, machine learning. So it's a simple yes or a no. So here goes the poll in front of you. Are you from an IT services background? Yes or a no? You could be from software, networking, tech support, web development, maintenance. That was data science. So data is the word, sort of, I missed that phrase, data. That's data science. Pardon me for that typo. Machine learning. Even if you're from any other sort of subdomain of IT, it's fine. So I see about 60% of the people from the IT services background and about a good 40%. So I see a 50-50 there, rather. So 50% of the people from the IT services background and rest from non-IT. And I presume that the ones who are from non-IT or a non-IT services background are looking to upskill or take up a new course or a fresh new career in IT. So that'll also be very relevant to the topic today. All right, so you all know the topic, right? Top tech skills that will be in demand post the COVID-19 world. I have with me somebody who is industry thought leader from the tech industry. I have with me Balaji Muralidharan, who is currently working with IBM as a head market development and insights, India and South Asia. And before working with IBM, he had worked with brands like CSC. He has also worked with IBM Global Services very early at his career start as a matrix analyst, and then he has been associated with a lot of technologies from a marketing side. So a lot of technologies that are in demand from the client side. He has a very good he and his team has a very good insights on those areas from purely from a macro demand perspective. In his current role at IBM, he's currently managing a team of solution architects and business development managers who are responsible for revenue and consumption from new routes to market and IBM segment, and obviously disruptive tech companies. So I would hand it over to him. I'll just ask my audience rather tell you the format of the webinar. I think we'll let Mr. Balaji do the talking for the first 15, 20 odd minutes, wherein he'll present or he'll talk firsthand about the technologies or the tech profiles that will be in demand. And then we can take on your specific questions. We can move on to the Q&A. So I would request all the audience to be patient and listen to his wisdom on the topic, and then we can take on your Q&A. So I, being the moderator, will take on your questions. You can see your Q&A button on your screen. That's your that's your tab for asking questions, which I'll take it on your behalf. So I would request all of you to have relevant questions in and around the topic. I'll hand it over to you, Mr. Balaji. I think our audience will extract a lot of learnings and a lot of insights from today's topic.
Perfect. Thanks, Dhruv.
Yep.
So before we start, maybe we can do a quick poll. You can use your hands to vote. How many of you are currently working in an IT organization?
So that poll has already been run by me. 50% of our audience which is present is currently working in IT services.
Okay, okay.
And rest 50% are from non-IT.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
So maybe what we could do is we could start with a quick summary of the areas that I want to quickly discuss.
Yep.
And we can take it from there. I was hoping to follow a three-pronged structure today. So I wanted to talk to you guys about general changes in technologies that have been happening over the last 7-8 years. Then we can talk about how COVID ended up impacting markets and either speeding up or completely changing some trends. And then towards the end, we will, pardon me, towards the end, we can have a conversation around skills that are hard. Now, what I would want from you is, let's take it through a sequence. I'm happy to take any questions once the whole thing is over. But if there's anything that anybody wants to quickly, please put your hands up and I'm happy to answer something even in the middle. So for many years, at least until the millennium, what was happened was a typical tech cycle used to take 15 to 20 years. That became about 8 to 10 years in the early part of the 21st century. And now what is hot and what is not in the market and the way skill set requirements change, things change every 3 to 5 years. So it becomes very important for people to, hi, can I become a pilot in Jaipur?
Which is fine. So I would request the audience to ask your questions. First of all, ask relevant questions.
You can become a pilot anywhere. Yeah. Okay. So that's really, so there's a change in the way the tech cycles are going. So rather than prepare for a particular technology and hope to spend the next 30 years working on it, it makes sense to continuously stay updated, educated, and try and figure out how to constantly upskill yourself so that at any point in time you don't get redundant. There was a time when you could specialize in something and work for 20 years. Those days are gone because with each decade, there are 2 innovation cycles that go through. So there was the cloud innovation piece that came in sometime in 2010. Then you had the AI, which came in 2013-14. And now we're talking about quantum computing. And in between, we had technologies that came in like blockchain. So it's very difficult for you to plan a 30-year career unless you continuously upgrade yourself. So that's one. That's the direction in which technology is going. Now, in the last 20 years, there have been 3, 4 cyclical changes. The first part of it has been the importance of mobile in terms of the way you consume. So a big chunk of development in the last 8 to 10 years has been in the form of people developing apps. So the skill sets for that was very, very different. You don't do it in the old waterfall method. There is a tendency to build agile teams and work on bringing quick updates. A lot of, with the whole app and the e-commerce ecospace, the importance of data became very, very critical. So the next thing you know, you had a situation where companies had lots and lots of data and didn't know what to do with it, which brought in the AI data scientists and anybody who works in deep analytics to come in and find a way to make sense of the data and build some sort of a pattern which can help that company serve their customers better. So that became very, very important. The way you interact changed. So especially in customer support, you used to have a lot of people who used to call doctors any flying school. So you had people who used to typically, so generally you have e-commerce organizations, and within those organizations you had tons of data that was coming in, and you had people using that data to build patterns. So that became very, very critical because digital footprint of yours became pretty much your customer cohort. The other piece, what happened was before customer support, there was a lot of usage of voice in terms of, we used to call a call center and have IVR. You first used to have people answering. Then you moved to IVRs, and today you have chats. Today you can just go in and talk to a bot. And a lot of that has happened with advances in AI, mostly natural language processing. And in some cases where it was not that complicated, just RPA managed to solve a lot of those problems. So you don't really talk to live agents anymore. So all of these things happened over a period of time purely because of the importance that people attach to interactions and data. I want to quickly take you guys through a presentation. It won't take a lot of time, but hold on. Let me. Okay. Now, gentlemen, look, ladies and gentlemen, the world changed as COVID came in. A lot of us ended up spending time at home and becoming a lot more dependent on technology. And one of the things that became very, very important for people was to ensure that organizations don't shut down. So one of the things that we have seen, which we see as a future trend, is that certain industries, which were very manufacturing and very disposable income centric, will see short, medium to long term impact. I want to take a larger industry view because you guys need to understand that within an industry there are subsegments. The devil is in the details. So we may not see hotels in full occupancy over the next 10 years. So you have big hotel chains who are invested in large properties, but with business travel going to reduce and going to continue to be low for at least another 3 to 5 years, a lot of those investments will play out. So that will have an effect on the hospitality sector. At the same time, within hospitality sector, you have hotels, you have restaurants, which will see a short to medium term impact, but over a long term, those things will get adjusted on. So anything which is hyper local may not see high impact, but anything that involves movement of geographies, it is going to take some time for some sort of movement. The government responded. Today, I think we are close to 3 lakh cases. Active cases are about 1.3, 1.4 lakhs. I think it's hit about 1.5 lakhs right now. The cumulative cost of the lockdown for us has been about $120 billion. And remember that if something impacts your GDP by $120 billion, it automatically means that that much amount of consumption doesn't happen, that many people lose their jobs. And more often than lose their jobs, that also makes it much harder for you to get jobs that you really want. So this becomes an area where at this point of time, survival of the fittest becomes very, very important. So it's all the more important that you build some sort of differentiated skill that makes you very, very valuable in the job. There is a lot of work that the government has done. So you had that huge stimulus with loans coming in. There was the whole package which came in before that. The health infra investments are huge. So at the end of the day, while there is a lot of work happening, there is going to be a lot of economic impact. This year, there's a reasonable chance that we will probably stay flat with no growth. And this is probably the first year we've been flat without no growth since I was in school, if I'm not mistaken. So, or probably even before that. So it involves us to think back and find a way to get more competitive. And that applies as much to me as to you guys. I want to take you through quickly some of the industries that I will not go through the entire slide. But at its core, travel and transportation will get badly impacted. Retail and FMCG, while there will be immediate impact, will over a period of time bounce back because the pent up demand will come back into the market in the first or second half. So if tomorrow you are working for a customer in IT services who is in retail and travel transformation, don't worry. New projects will probably start coming in later in the year or early next year. Manufacturing will probably be steady. Industrial will see some amount of drop before moving up. It depends upon what. One of the segments that will probably see a significant amount of impact is going to be the banking segment. So here, this is one place where you are very likely to see a huge shift away from branch banking. So a lot of the interactions that used to happen face to face will probably go away. And a lot of that will be aided by technology that comes in. So while a lot of us are used to using mobile with our private sector banks, with the exception of SBI and a couple of others, many of the public sector banks are digital laggards. So you will see significant investments for them to amp that up. You're going to see a lot of cooperative banks go on to some sort of a centralized platform into a blank in a box kind of environment. That's going to be a change. Telecom companies, a lot of telecom companies are going to go into the business. They already, Reliance is already there as Airtel. Content is going to become the main business because the way of consuming that content is probably going to be through mobile phone and bandwidth. Cloud hyperscalers, the Amazons, the Microsofts, the IBMs, the Google, they will see a lot of increase in their digital footprint vis-a-vis buying servers and keeping them on location. Regulatory changes will come in which will make it easier for you to keep your data offline, online, while at the same time having backup to ensure that there's never any loss in runtime. So there's going to be innovation that's going to come in to ensure that data compression becomes better and more effective. So these are some changes that you probably will see. Now I come to the last part. And skills to focus on anything which is focused on digitization becomes important. So if you probably are doing your regular courses, which become your hygiene courses. So you need to know C++, it's a foundation. You need to know, if you know Java, that's probably a huge advantage. If you have some amount of understanding of mobile development, that becomes important. But to really differentiate yourself today, skills of tomorrow, picking them up becomes important. There is a huge gap in the market for high quality people in security. So you don't have people who are certified to run security operation centers. So many organizations are investing a lot of money today to build areas which can protect assets, which can protect any sort of a digital, for want of a better word, asset. And that is a job of the future. So if you are actually going to become an RSA certified or a QRadar certified or even a Splunk certified person, there's a pretty good chance that you may get jobs in the security operations area. Anything which is data related will see significant amount of traction. So whether it is your data science, whether it's your big data, whether it's just pure analytics which you're going to do using a Tableau or even an R, that becomes very important. Anything where you learn. So if today a big chunk of digitization is going to be driven through automation and RPA. So if you can learn Blue Prism or automation anywhere or a UI part, and you work in that space, that's again something which is clearly going to have traction over the next 3 to 4 years. Python, if you are so inclined, you need a little bit of a mathematical background to be able to effectively do something in data science. So you may want to be cognizant of that. The piece that I want to focus on is that generic skills are good. They make you capable of absorbing specialized skills. That's pretty much it. So while you do courses, it's also important that you keep yourself updated. I do courses even today. I think this year I have done courses on online forums for about 30 odd hours. A lot of the time I was doing it was during the lockdown. I do about 60 to 80 hours of learning on my company internal site across new technologies. So you have to constantly keep learning and constantly keep updating yourself. Otherwise you get redundant. You also need to focus, especially if you want a career in technology, to specialize. And the specialization, you might have 3 or 4 specializations over a period of your career. So today, for example, if you start learning about data and AI, it'll be 3 years before you can actually, for want of a better word, monetize it. So where you would actually become a high quality resource in demand. At that time, when you're doing that, you also probably need to pick up something in quantum, a blockchain, so that in the next wave, you're not left redundant. So it's very important to have some amount of knowledge so that when a skill becomes hot, you can immediately go in, learn, and apply a lot of those skills. Because a lot of organizations are going to spend significant amount of their time and resources in cross and upskilling people. Because you cannot learn one technology and survive over a period of time. And that pretty much also sums up what you can do to become a stronger candidate as you go forward. Because it's very important that you put in that time or invest that time in learning new skills. Certifications, for example, are very, very important. If today you are somebody with 5, 6 years of experience, you probably need to start learning about project management, try and figure out a way to become a project management professional. If you're somebody who's starting your career newly, then you want to go and maybe take a networking course, if that's something that's something which is easy to start, or take up some courses in security. If you can learn something on data science and build some sort of applications or even mobile development and what you can do to be able to build good looking apps using any one of the mobile development platforms, maybe the Google Android platform, that becomes a very, very important skill. The idea is what is it that you're doing to learn. And that's it. So the same things. So that's pretty much it. So I wanted to take maybe 12 to 14 minutes to take through. I think I'm well within time. So if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to.
Yeah.
Take it.
Right. So you can, if I may request you to stop the screen share so that we can go back to the question and answer. So one of the questions that one of our potential, perhaps somebody who's already into his engineering BTech is asking is that what aspects of, because he's doing a BTech in CS, which is computer science. I think I'd probably read out the entire question. Just a minute. Yeah, so the question is from Karthikeya Dikshit, which is that how much scope is there in BTech in computer science specializing in AI? So I think AI is as you rightly said, the cycle of tech has changed, and the fact that AI got introduced in early 2012-13, and the fact that a lot of tech companies, I mean, frankly, online education is also leveraging on AI a great bit. So
if off the top of my head, I don't think you can specialize in AI within BTech, right? You might have a subject called AI, which you can take. I don't think it's a minor per se. But if that's what you're interested in, then you have 4 years to do projects there. You have 4 years to learn. And if you have reasonably good mathematical skills, that should not be a problem at all. You probably will come.
maths clearly is a prerequisite.
So the idea is that at the end of the day, anything which you do in artificial intelligence is either around data or it is around interaction. So if you're doing natural language processing, which is basically building chatbots, then you don't really need a lot of math. But if you're doing anything which is focused on data, then obviously math skills become very, very important because you need to
Sure.
be.
Sure. Just so you know, sir, and for the audience in general as well, Karthikeya, Amity Online has a vertical in emerging tech, in the emerging tech space, which is blockchain, AI, data science, and all these relevant the emerging tech sort of tech fields. You can log on to amityfutureacademy.com, wherein you can have a look at all these programs. So there are now proper specialized courses available in each of these domains. If you do not have a, or if you have a very minor sort of a subject or just one subject of AI in your BTech computer science, and you want to specialize in AI, then you can choose that artificial intelligence program. I think the duration for that is about 10 months. Uh, so you will log on to amityfutureacademy.com and have a look at the course curriculum for AI and figure out whether it's a good fit for you or not. Birinder Singh Rathod has a question, sir, which is which programming language is preferred for expertise in cybersecurity?
I don't think that's a programming language question. Within cybersecurity, I think you need to focus. You need to pick. You can specialize in being able to manage a security operations center. You can, and there are n number of security certifications where you can pick an organization and pretty much do a specialization on implementing their solutions. Uh, there is the identity and access management piece there. There is your security operations center. There is automation. So within each of these, every OEM has its own solution, and you probably will want to build skills on implementing and maintaining one, two, or many of them, or just get a generic skill and then learn specific technologies depending upon that, and that should be good. Programming language, I think everything is C++. The foundational programming language should be okay.
Yeah. Again, I think Mr. Rathod, if you're someone who's looking to specialize in cybersecurity, then that the website that I just named, which is Amity Future Academy, it's a part of Amity Online now. It's an initiative from Amity Online itself. You can have a look at the cybersecurity program as well. So there is a postgraduate diploma in cybersecurity. In fact, I'm on the website right now and reading up. So it's a program that we are running with obviously the industry relevant certification, wherein we focus both on strategy and tools and industry driven comprehensive curriculum. There is a capstone project as well for 2 months. And there is also live interaction with cybersecurity experts and corporate leaders in the program. I think you would gain a lot of insights and a lot of information about the program if you log on to amityfutureacademy.com and watch an intro video of cybersecurity. So I'm sure all your answers as far as cybersecurity is concerned could be answered. And if you still feel you need to talk to one of our program advisors, you can leave in your details on the website and somebody will get in touch with you. Okay. Any more questions? So obviously, how to become a pilot is not a relevant question for this platform. I think we're discussing, tech and IT.
I think there are flying schools, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure there are. How is marketing? How marketing and IT is related? Leo Xavier has a so I think it's a sort of a disconnected question. I'll probably put it that in the right frame. Is marketing technologies a good field to get into? Let's say if somebody were to say let's say I'm keen in marketing, but I don't want to go into deep tech, but I still want to be associated with marketing with IT, being a marketer. So that's been your core forte right throughout, right? That's been your...
If you are, so I've been in marketing, I've been in sales, and you need technical skills for anything where you are talking to a customer. Like the last 5 years, which I was in sales, still am. you have to have reasonable knowledge of what's happening in the market. You have to have a reasonable knowledge of your products as well as your competitors. You also need to understand the use cases effectively. So from that perspective, understanding technologies, or at least understanding technology of your organizations, more so in sales than marketing. And I spent more time in sales than marketing. Um, if I was to talk about, and I'm just going off a little bit on a tangent here. If you are working for an organization and you're working in the marketing organization, it's important for you to understand your offering in depth, vis-a-vis what you have as against your competitor. You need that also to crystallize your content on a digital asset. So you may not need to learn to code, but you definitely need to understand uh, at a foundational level what your products do vis-a-vis others in the market. And you need to have a reasonably broad understanding of everybody who's working in that particular ecosystem that you do.
Right. Okay. So there's a student, Olivia, who is currently doing a BBA, a Bachelor of Business Administration, which obviously does not cover IT or programming languages per se. However, she feels that she needs to work in the IT field, in the IT sector. So being a graduate, or being somebody who is perhaps about to finish her BBA or a graduation, a simple graduation, she would like to like herself to get employed in the IT sector. And her follow-up question is, she would like to do web development like PHP and MySQL. I am not an IT guy, so you know these languages well, you know these terms well. So PHP, she would like to be into web development. So you could perhaps throw more light on the field of web development and related aspects like PHP and MySQL. Not aware what that is, but I'm sure that you can answer that.
Look, if you want, I'm assuming that she wants to work in the field of building apps, if I could put it so crudely. In which case, honestly, there are enough courses available online for you to be able to learn how to do that. PHP is even today the code which is used to build any sort of mobile application. So I don't know what the question is. I mean, you can just go in and learn, and then you can start building your own apps. And as of today, any organization, whether it's a Google or honestly anyone who has its own platform for mobile development, uh, provides their own tutorials in terms of what you can do to start learning and building. And some foundational courses, a little bit of YouTube learning, I think should be fine. And getting a job is not very difficult in that area, because the number of customers, the number of companies that are springing up, as long as you have the skill, there's actually a skill shortage in that area.
Web development, you feel is going to be is still in great demand, and
it's very remunerative. People may not pay a lot of money in the future because it will get commoditized, but at the end of the day, that is always going to be an area which is.
So is that because, so when you say it's very remunerative, is that because a typical web developer, because the kind of technology is working and the platform is working, is the face of the organization? Because now the face of any online organization is an app or a website. And how
I agree, but if you are doing a BBM and you are joining an organization, which they're probably joining after the app is already built. So you will probably be working on maintenance. If you want to build your own app and you want to build your own organization, that becomes completely different, because then honestly, at this point of time, there are n number of avenues to learn in the market. I mean, this is one area where companies are actually going out of their way to skill you. So as long as you can get some foundational courses from some places, the rest you can learn through YouTube.
All right. So Olivia, I think as Mr. Balaji rightly said, it's a very remunerative field, and the fact that the web development is also in huge demand. So you can certainly consider that as a career straight after your graduation. So what is the scope of electronics in coming year amid the coronavirus? Scope of electronics. So
Scope of every other organization. It doesn't matter. I mean, I think I answered this before. Your specialization beyond a point doesn't matter. What skills you develop. So if you are going to learn one of these skills of the future, scope is good. At the end of the day, unless it's a CS engineering from with some high quality projects which you've done from maybe the top 3 or 4 IITs, everybody else just needs to start from the bottom. I mean, in which case, what skills you have, nobody's going to invest time and money in training you purely on your potential. It's something that you need to build over a period of time. So, by itself, electronics is probably the same as any other field because you start from the scratch.
Okay. So India's clearly been looked upon as a new IT hub. What kind of jobs it might attract, new roles, skills, specifications? Yeah, so I think you've already covered that in your presentation, but yeah, if you could just yeah. So India's looked upon as a new IT hub. I think you've already spoken on this in terms of what is going to be in demand from artificial learning to data science to machine learning. If there's also a question on machine learning and data science. Uh, there is a lot of obviously questions around machine learning and data science, but could you just explain the why of it, as to why are these skills in demand now than before? I mean, why
So
is there a
it has to do with it honestly has to do with the fact that there is a lot more data available, which means we need people to churn it. And at the end of the day, it's as simple as that, right? I mean, we create more data in a year today than what we had until 2000. So when so much data is getting churned, then that data becomes an asset. So you need people to go in there and find a way to build patterns from that data, which can help you either serve your customer better or monetize your customer better. The other piece which comes with AI is that very often uh, you, if you can find a way to automate certain processes, there is a reasonably good chance that you can know that what needed 10 or 15 people to do before can happen with 3, 4, or 5 people. And the disruptions across industries are tremendous. So one of the industries which will get heavily disrupted is the contact center industry. You used to have so many people joining that business, but going forward, there's a good chance that the initial level of screening will happen through a bot, and that will reduce the number of agents on the floor. So while people who are there will upgrade their skills and probably find a way to stay on,
yeah,
it will be the biggest recruiter going forward into the future because it's probably cheaper to use a bot than people. I mean, first it was cheaper to use people in India vis-a-vis in
yeah,
Europe. Now it's probably going to be cheaper to use a bot than people here. So those are some changes you're going to see. And there's a chance that its levels of service are more consistent when you have a bot because the bot learns and over a period of time, it'll get to a level where it can perform at the same level, if not better than
yes,
consistency.
right. So we obviously understood the why of it, given that bots, you rightly said, bots can actually replaced manpower because a lot of online e-commerce companies use bots to interact with their potential customers. So just you have a bank which has a customer service support, an agent of 100 people, that job can be done, let's say, by a bot. The capabilities sort of
Let's say you get 5,000 emails a day, but 4,000 emails are standard responses which a bot can give. The 1,000 which are complicated then go to the
yeah,
agents,
yeah,
and the bot is cheaper.
yeah, yeah. All right. So the other question is that will MBAs have a future then? So people who are doing their typical
Nobody will
marketing
have a
thing.
future if they don't build skills.
Sorry.
Uh, Nobody will have a future if they don't build market ready skills. Uh, so, it's a tough question actually. You will still have people who work in the sales profession. You will still have people who will be working in factories. You will still have people who will be working in the business process area. Uh, whether you're an MBA or not, if you are in a job which can be automated, chances are over the next 10, 15 years it will be. So you can pick to learn and upgrade your skills to ensure that you can work at a level of complexity where your job doesn't get automated. But it doesn't matter what your education qualifications are. If what you're doing, you can be replaced by a bot. It may not happen today. It may happen 5 years, 10 years, 15 years down the line, but it will happen. Because at the end of the day, it's important for us to be able to build skills to do things outside of the routine, mundane jobs. And there are people who are going to scale up, and there are going to be people who are not going to scale up. And it is what.
Okay. All right. So, any more questions on the topic today? So clearly, as you rightly said, that you have to look at the possibility or the probability of your particular job getting automated. I mean, it's clearly will boil down to that. And if you feel that there is, say for instance, if you're in car sales, in automotive cars, in the automotive industry selling cars, and you foresee that your company or your organization has completely digitalized the process, and perhaps they don't require, or they require a lesser manpower to sell cars, and they can automate that particular process of selling cars. I'm just assuming hypothetically.
Eventually, everything will go. So, for example, there was a time when we used to go to shops to buy mobiles. The mobile salesman actually used to make a lot of commissions. Today, I think the last 3 mobiles I bought online. Every 2 years, you replace it and you buy it online. I mean, that's kind of how it works. And I haven't actually gone to a physical store and bought a mobile since maybe 2013 or 14. So if you can disrupt something which is 30, 40,000 rupees, there is a reasonably good chance over a period of time you can disrupt something which is 10 to 15 lakhs. It's just a matter of finding the trigger to ensure that people can get the same trustworthy service. You may still have somebody selling a Range Rover or one of the high-spec Mercedes, but eventually what's going to happen is the hatchbacks will probably be sold online first. And then so on.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Any more questions, participants? Okay. So there's a question coming in from Rahul, is asking about Kareem, blockchain. So blockchain, what cycle are we on at this point in terms of the demand? There's also a follow-up question on blockchain, which is on cryptocurrency. There was this. There are a lot of cryptocurrencies. The concept of cryptocurrencies that involved in the basis of that has been blockchain, the blockchain technology. So what cycle of demand is it on at this point, and what is the foreseeable demand in the coming future?
So blockchain is something where if it's an unambitious use case, you generally see success. But the more ambitious the use case, the less likely. So we know blockchain works. We just don't know whether it can scale to a level where it can be used at an enterprise grade level. That said, there's been a lot of early success right now, especially in areas like food safety, bank transactions, teller transactions. There have been certain avenues where blockchain is clearly making things much easier in terms of being able to back and forth that you have with business transactions. Cryptocurrency is tricky because eventually people will find a way to regulate it. And when they actually end up regulating cryptocurrencies, we'll have to kind of see how the market works. Because that's an area where governments have still not built requisite safety measures. And some of the EU is taking the lead on it, and US is also doing something. But blockchain definitely is going to be very big over the next 5, 10, 15 years. But within blockchain, when you have your own, so at the end of the day, everybody will build their own networks. So within each network, they will need a significant amount of people to manage it. So that is going to be an area where the skill is going to be quite hot moving forward. But it will not employ as many people as we think it will. It isn't going to be like a Y2K story.
All right. Okay. All right. So we've spoken about data science. We've spoken about AI to a greater extent, and therefore comes a question from a teacher who's saying that why do you think? I mean, it's obviously not a very relevant question to you because you're not a policymaker on the education policies, but don't you then think that all these relevant skill sets should be taught early in the school days, or perhaps we will miss the bus because if we have these curriculum incorporated in our school books or in our in higher education, let's say in colleges, let's say with the BTech program, if you're teaching on AI specialization or a blockchain specialization, we'll have more skilled manpower passing out of colleges and schools. You have an opinion on that?
There are foundational skills and there are specialized. Not a particularly strong opinion, but there are foundational skills and there are specialized skills. So you learn foundational skills and then you specialize. So if people can find a way to teach foundational skills earlier on, uh, then you can use college to teach specialized skills. Again, this is much more complicated than, and I think it's way too complicated for me to have a very strong opinion because this is education policy and I'm not an expert.
All right. Okay. So any more questions before we finally debate? I think a lot of people also want to talk to you in person, which I think they would want to be in touch with an industry expert like you. So are you comfortable sharing your email address? If certainly you're not mobile number with fewer of our participants.
Anybody drop me a note at balaji.muralidharan
So
at gmail.com.
can I just type in it on your behalf, or can you type it on the chat section?
You can type it in the chat section.
Yeah. So I'm making it to all panelists and attendees so that, yeah.
I may not be most regular in answering, but I'll try my best to answer.
Okay. What about hiring? Because we also see this question, which is not related to the topic, but purely from an hiring perspective, since a lot of us are working virtually and students are studying online nowadays, not just in the online education space, but in the full-time space also. A lot of the universities and colleges have transited to the online study and the online mechanism of learning. Will brands like IBM, Infosys, I mean, you're obviously not in the hiring managers, this thing, but purely from a hiring.
I don't think I have enough information to comment on that. But at a market trend level, I think hiring will not change. This year may get delayed, but
In the sense that hiring may just get delayed, obviously, but will hiring take place? I mean, let's say through online mode. I mean, let's say can we see a
I honestly cannot comment on that. There are a lot of tools today to hire online.
Yeah, so I think Lakshmi was asking this question from Chennai. Lakshmi, we had a webinar with one of an industry expert who is the vice president human resources HSBC Bank, who can perhaps answer your question. So I can connect you with him. And so he did spoke about HSBC Bank hiring the online way, wherein they can perhaps have a portal of sorts on the website and invite applications through that. So I can connect you with him, and then he can certainly answer your question on that front. There's a question from Kumar Shinde. I want to do BCA online from Amity. Can I do? Yes, Kumar. Amity Online does have a BCA program and a UG, and it's also recognized by the University Grant Commission. So you can log on to our website, which is amityonline.com, and you can see the BCA program, apply, pay the fee, and you're good to go. So clearly, BCA is a course that you can do at Amity Online. Yeah. So if you also wish, you can club, as we've already spoken in this session, that there are other IT relevant certifications or programs like blockchain, data science, machine learning, and so on that you can additionally do from Amity Future Academy. But as far as a full-fledged Bachelor of Computer Application is concerned, that you can consider doing from Amity Online. You can log on to amityonline.com. Okay. All right. So I think you've taken enough questions, and we obviously could not take a question from Karthik on on his aspiration of becoming a pilot because that's not relevant to the topic.
You can do it in Jaipur, you can do that. But again, I'm no expert, but I'm reasonably certain there are flying schools.
IGRUHA, I think I've heard of it. IGRUHA is a sort of a government national flying school. So it phased out in one of my cousins did it, so it's not relevant to the topic. All right. So with this, I think we come to an end of this session, and I will thank first of all the speaker, Mr. Balaji, to give us a precious time and throw light on the subject. And I also thank the audience for asking some very good questions. For more information on online education, I think one of the aspects that Mr. Balaji has also spoken about, that he himself has done about 40 hours of learning, if I'm correct, sir, for the past 2 months or so, 3 months or so. So I think upskilling and reskilling is a constant that is not going to change, right? We don't want to become dinosaurs and look like being extinct. So you will have to upskill and you will have to reskill. That is the need of the hour. It is no longer a choice really, because as he rightly said in the beginning that you could specialize in a particular technology and work for 20 or 30 years. That's a considerable amount of time, but having new emerging technologies evolved and the world changed at the blink of an eye, I think you will have to keep evolving yourself after every 3 years or 4 years or 5 years. So I think that's, you have to keep abreast to what is happening. I think that's, I think, very wonderfully put. So with that, we come to an end. I thank all participants for your valuable time. I thank the speaker once again. And we wish to see more such webinars coming in. So we have a webinar coming in on Wednesday, which is on brand marketing. So tune in. So stay tuned in. You will get an information very soon on these webinars. I can now sign off, and I again thank you, sir, for your valuable time.
Anytime.
Thank you, audience. Thank you, sir. All right. Have a good day.